Steve, will you tell us something about film music review, how you got interested in it, and what you think is the value of it, if there is a value of having it online?
Well, I've had a lifelong interest in and passion for symphonic music written for the screen, and so I'm always doing my investigative work online, looking for like-minded people and sources. And I think perhaps through Randall Larson, who was a writer we both have a great deal of respect for, I discovered Roger Hall and Film Music Review and found it a very personal and passionate site devoted to the preservation of motion picture music and cultivating conversation about it. And so I became very impressed with you as an individual, as a creative artist, and certainly as a preservationist in your own right. And we began corresponding, and you very kindly asked me if I'd consider doing some work for you, and I was remain honored and flattered, and always loved doing that for you. And I've done a number of pieces for you, but as we discussed earlier, whether it's 1,000 people or 100 or 10, as long as we're communicating to someone, the majesty and beauty, cultural significance, and importance of symphonic music written for the motion picture screen. And I think you and your website, Film Music Review, do that wonderfully and selflessly and lovingly, certainly. And I'm just honored to be your friend and to be, however small a part of that you allow me to continue being.
Thank you. I think that's important to recognize that there aren't that many sites that stay on as long as Film Music Review. Many of them come and go. I've seen a number of them going over the years. It's been now online for 16 years, and I hope to continue it. But it is a lot of work involved, and it's.
But anything doing is worth doing well.
It's a labor of love, as they say.
And I think that's apparent to anyone who visits Film Music Review. We're not necessarily dissecting the films or their accompanying scores, but expressing the emotion and the passion and the artistry expressed in this powerfully expressive music, and we're attempting to convey that love to those who may not necessarily be aware of the music that elevates film to its greatest heights.
Yes, I agree. One of the things that I'm most pleased about, in addition to your writing, and Stephen Kennedy, who's also a writer, and Jeffrey Dane has also written for Film Music Review, is the composers who have written to me. Elmer Bernstein sent me a wonderful short message saying I did a review of one of his CDs of his televisions, they were short subjects that he wrote the music for. He said, "You, among all the people who have ever listened to this, got the idea of what it was all about." And he said, "I really appreciate that. The fact that you found what that music really meant." And I was really quite moved by that he would write to me and say that, because he's a composer like so many that we admire, and you don't expect them to write to you like that and tell you that they appreciate something like that. To me, that was a great honor.
I understand that completely. Conversely, during the course of the documentary feature that's being made about my life and career, The Man Who Saved the Movies, we had the Composers Forum at the home of Mark McKenzie with Lee Holdridge, Mark McKenzie, Greg Nestor, and Patrick Russ, composers, arrangers, orchestrators, Greg, a classical guitarist. And here's Lee Holdridge, Emmy-winning television and film composer, whose opera was conducted by Placido Domingo last spring at the LA Opera House, talking about what he does, but also what I do in expressing the beauty of their work, and stating on camera that it's rare that someone like me or Randall Larson or you, on an emotional level, understand what it is they're trying to convey, and how important that is, as opposed to the gentlemen who perhaps are more musically schooled than I am, not necessarily you, but that we're talking about their music from from the aspect of a listener and how it affects us on an emotional, spiritual level, and how that's something that's rarely put into print, and why it's important to the composer as well as to the writer and to the audience.
Well, I think, yeah, that's a very important point, that it's an emotional art, I think.
It is.
That we're talking about. I mean, I think of music in general that way,
Yeah.
even though I'm a composer myself, that you have to reach the audience, whatever the audience is, but you also have to express yourself and then just put it out there and hope that the audience will appreciate it.
Right. And I'm not a musician, but I am a writer, and as a
And it's similar with writing, I think.
well, if I am an artist in any way, shape, or form, and I certainly would never refer to myself that way, but from a writing standpoint, I try to express how I feel about the music that I'm listening to and hearing, and how it affects me on an emotional or a spiritual or even intellectual level. And I think that was Lee Holdridge's point, that I'm coming not from the standpoint of a musician, but someone who is receptive to it on an emotional level, and seeing it for the artistry and the beauty that is there beyond the screen, if you will.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I think that's very true. Okay, well, thank you again.
Roger, thank you. It's been a pleasure having you here.